Okay, hi. All right, it is me. I'm a little bit tardy, but I'm going to get this last section of Unit 2 recorded for you. Let's get started. Hopefully, I won't be interrupted for the millionth time today. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is the 5 number summary, and you'll be very relieved with the ease of the mathematics for this, okay? I know you just came off of standard deviation, and I know it's tedious and it's brutal. I promise you that your quiz data sets are small and reasonable, and your exam data sets will be small and reasonable. Okay, so you won't be doing any 30 numbers or anything like that. The homework is for you to have repetitive practice. So it kind of makes muscle memory. So it'll kind of stick in your head, right? So when you go to do it, you don't have to think as hard. That's why you should do your homework and practice. That's the only reason. Okay. You might understand it when I explain it to you, but if you don't practice it, it won't stick. All right, so let's talk about the 5 number summary. Oh, it is to be noted also that I know that all of this stuff can be done on your calculator. Okay, I'm aware that you can do your standard deviation, your mean, your mode. You can put stuff into the list and run the stats program and do like that. I will not be accepting those answers as correct answers on the test. And I promise you, I will know if you used a calculator to do this or not. There's a reason why I want you to do this stuff by hand. Uh, I have a bigger reason in your general learning journey. So please do heed my warning and be sure that you do your stuff as I require, as I demonstrate in my lectures and as I require. All right, so here we go. Let's talk about quartiles. You see down here, what I have here is called a normal curve, and we're not going to be doing anything with normal curves really this semester. But if you are going to be taking your elementary stats class, which a large number of you guys do, especially if you're going into the STEM or social sciences, you will be taking a stats class. So it's a good for you to start understanding it a little bit. And really all we're talking about here is quartiles, and quartiles is percentages. If you'll see in the red here, I kind of wrote down percentage marks across here. And starting all the way at the left at 0% of the data, and this is what I'm talking about. Remember, we've just been working with data sets, lots and lots of numbers of data that have to be sorted and computed and can be described in many ways, right? Mean, median, mode, standard deviation, and now the 5 number summary and quartiles. Okay, so the first quartile is that first 25%. So starting from 0, that first 25%, that's going to represent quartile 1. And then from the quartile 1 to the middle, which we might think about it as quartile 2, but we don't call it that. Of course, that would be too easy in math if we called things exactly as they were. We call that the median, okay? The middle, right? And then as you see over here, when we hit 75%, that is quartile 3 or Q3. That's 75% of the data. And then if every bit of this was colored in all the way to the ends, that would represent 100% of the data. Okay. So a couple things to be noted here. You can totally see between 0 and 50% that that's 50% of the data. And you can see from 50% to 100% that that is also 50% of the data. But notice that you can also see that between quartile 1 and quartile 3, that is also 50% of the data values. And I realize I don't always say data values. Sometimes I just say data, but that is to be interchanged. Okay. When I'm talking like this about the data or talking about the range of the data where you find the highest minus the lowest, when you're trying to do histograms and things like that. So when I say data, I do mean those actual numbers, the data values. Okay. We are not in class together. I can't look in your eyeballs and see that you get it from me, right? So I apologize if you guys already get it and I am belaboring it. I haven't taught in a couple of weeks. I pre-taught a whole lot of lectures because my mom is extremely ill. And now we've caught up to my prep, and here I am a couple of days late. I apologize. Mom's been in the ICU. She's been extremely sick, and I just haven't been able to compose myself, honestly, well enough to present to you. So here I am trying again for the third time today to get this darn video done. So listen, if I'm putting forth this kind of effort, I really hope that you're putting forth some effort in the class too, okay? So if you haven't been, come on. Come on, let's go through this together. You guys are keeping me sane. I promise. The only normal thing in my life right now. Okay, I didn't want to go on a rant, but I did. So here we go. While I have paused before we go on, let me talk about today's attendance quiz phrase. Okay. The silly phrase today is the moon just texted me a joke about socks. Yeah. The moon just texted me a joke about socks. Now that is ridiculous and it makes me so happy. Anyway, thanks for playing along with my silly game, but it is the way that you get your attendance points. All right. So let's keep on going here. So basically, the idea is, that every little section between the barriers of the quartiles, the 25%, the 50%, the 75%, is worth 25%. So we could certainly say that 50% of the data is less than quartile 1 and greater than quartile 3, right? Because that would be here and here. Okay. All right. I think you get it. Let's get down to business. So finding the quartiles is very similar to finding the median. Okay, and remember when we did the work to find the median, and let's remind ourselves real quick. Let me remind me real quick. There were two situations when we dealt with the median. We had if the number of data values, right? Number of data values, that is the variable n, right? So if n was odd, not off, y'all. Give me grace. Give me grace. At least I'm catching it. Oh, no. Okay. So if n was an odd value, like an odd number, like 13 or 27 or something, if n was odd, then the position in the ordered list is found by n over 2. And n over 2 is the same thing as of saying 1/2 of n, which is exactly the same thing as 0.5 n. And this is what we're going to use to find the position. Now remember that this gives just the position. It does not give the answer. Okay. Just the position, not the answer. So if n is odd, then the position in the ordered list is found by finding n over 2. If n was even, then the position in the ordered list is found by the average of n over 2 plus, or n over 2 plus 1. So in other words, the middle and the next one. So the middle and its subsequent term. Middle And next one. So this is not anything you compute. You don't compute this. You don't have to figure out what n over 2 plus 1 is. This just means we take the n over 2 guy and we take the next one. So if n over 2 is 8, we're going to average the value, the data value of the 8th and the 9th together so we can find the median. You should have already been learning this and practicing this, but again, like I mentioned, it's been a few weeks since I taught, so I can't really remember exactly what I said to you. I know I said all this, but it's not fresh enough in my mind to not be repetitive. Okay, so I just want to remind you that that is how, and remember what it is, that just gives the position. Just the position, which one on the list is the middle one. All right. So when we start finding the quartile by math, by computing some stuff, and of course, what we're dealing with are small enough lists that you might be able to count it through. You might be able to figure out what a quarter of it is and what a 3/4 of it is and stuff like that. It's really easy to find the middle in general, even if you're counting, right? You can count the total of them and then you, in your head, divide it by 2 and figure out where half is, and then you go to where half is. So this is really doing the exact same thing, right? So if we want to know what half is, we're going to say times a half or times 0.5. What if we want to know what a quarter of it is? We're going to multiply it by 0.25. What if we want to know what 3/4 of it is? 0.75. All right. And if you have a hard time keeping that together, for me, it's easy to think about it kind of like money, because a quarter is 25 cents, half a dollar is 50 cents, 3/4 of a dollar, 75 cents, of course. So, if you're having a hard time just kind of all this language is different, it's not words you usually use, then just kind of try to relate it to something that you do always use, and we always use money, of course. So what we find when we're doing the quartile is something called the locator value, and that is what this was here. This is what we would consider, and I'll write that, the locator value. And it's the average of these things are, the average of these things are the locator value. I don't want to change language midstream and now you're like, what is she talking about? This locator value that I use when I made my PowerPoint. Okay. So let me see if I can scroll down. All right. So we need 3 locator values because what we're going to find is something called the 5-number summary, which includes the minimum value in the data set, the maximum value in the data set, and the quartile and the median and or the quartile 1, the median, the 3/4. I knew this was going to happen. You guys, hold on. I'm going to have to pause the recording for a second. Okay. This is how my day's been. All right, so now you've just got a real vision into my life. My phone does not stop ringing for care for my mother right now because we're setting up hospice and getting things delivered, and it's just crazy. Okay, hello, here we go. All right, so this is how we find the Q1. For the Q1, we're going to take a quarter, 0.25, times the number in the number of data points, right? N is the number of data points in the set. So I tried to write with my pen upside down. Okay, so N equals the number of data in the set, which you should already know this because you've been working on your homework, right? Because I'm behind, you're not behind. All right. So for the Q1, we take 0.25 times the number of the values in the set, and that gives us the position on the ordered list of where we can find that answer. Okay. The median is 0.5, half. Q3 is 0.75, 3/4. Okay, it tracks with what you already know about how fractions work and stuff. So hopefully you can lean on that. Now, because I've tried to record this so many times today, I am not sure if I've given you the phrase. I am not sure if I have told you a lot of things. So if I repeat something, please forgive me. But let me give you the phrase, I think again, but I'm not sure if I gave it to you. So here it goes. The moon just texted me a joke about socks. I really feel like I just said this, but really I've re-recorded so many times. Okay, so the moon just texted me a joke about socks. All right, here we go. Let's keep on going. But again, let me remind you that, and I wrote this in bold, but the numbers that you receive from these calculations only provide you with the position on the ordered list. Okay. Now, let's just look at this brief little snapshot. This is what you'd want to jot down. The minimum, Q1, median, Q3, maximum. That's the order in which you're going to write them down. Okay. And a lot of times, and in many times, people give you the 5-number summary, not written like that. Not written up and down like that, but in a vertical list, a horizontal list, where the first number is the min, then you have Q1, then you have the median, then you have Q2, Q3, and then you have the max. So that is the way that you would read that. And you would be expected, if we were to tell you this is a 5-number summary, that boom, 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 what each one of those values mean without you getting any other information. Okay. All right. So let's do our first example. And very nicely, I already put the data in order. Your data is not going to come in order to you, but also I'm not going to give you huge lists on quizzes and exams. Big lists on homework, maybe. The tedium helps build the muscle memory, like I mentioned, but let's take care of this. So we need to find our 5-number summary. And so we need to have the minimum value, our Q1, and we get our Q1 by saying n times 0.25. We do our median by doing n times 0.05. I'm leaving out a parenthesis there. You don't need it. I'm just being anal and I'm not changing anything now because this has just been a day. N times 0.75. I see I made a mistake right there. Y'all, I'm so stinking tired. Okay. All right. So this will be 5, 0, right? 50%, 25%, 50%, 75%. And then we need our max. Okay, so here's our example. Let's knock it out here. What is our minimum value? 59, because the list is already ordered. Okay. Now, when we go to find our Q1, how many is in the list? I usually write it in the question for you on quizzes and exams, so you're not counting them or whatever, but be sure to read the question and double check me. But definitely look there. So 15. So we'll say 15 times 0.25, and that gives us 3.75. Now, the thing you have to do here is you must round up all the time, no matter if you would normally round up or not. You must round up. If not, a whole number. It doesn't matter. It could be of a 0.1 and you're still going to round up if it's not a whole number. And that's the thing that gets everybody here. So please pay attention to that. All right. So 3.75 rounds up to be the fourth position in the list. And then let's see what that answer is. The fourth position is 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth position. And the fourth position is 61. See, 4 is not the answer. 61 is the answer. This is just like a code that tells us where to go for the first 25%, the 50%, the first 75%. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do the median real quick. That is 15 times 0.50. That is 7.5. And we have to round up because it's not a whole number. Okay. And that gives us the 8th position. And the 8th position, let's see what it is. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. This is the 8th position. So it is 66. All right, and now let's do this one. 15 times 0.75. That gives us 11.25. Round up because it's not a whole number, and you don't round down, you round up. Okay, it goes against what you've been trained, but it's what we have to do here because we're looking for the next whole number position. So when we round that up, then this is the 12th position. In the 12th position, that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is equal to 69. And then our max value is 72. Okay. I'm sorry, I used 2 different colors there. Okay, and so if we want to write our 5 number, we would write 59, 61, 66, 69, 72. Now there's a couple things to be noted here. They're in order. They're in ascending order. They're going from the smallest value to the largest value. So if you get something wonky, like if you're right here at the median, or you're right here at the Q3 and you get the number 64, that's the, you messed up somewhere, right? Because these guys have to be in order because of what we're doing, right? That whole number line, we're just grabbing the first 25% of the ordered list, the second 25% of the ordered list. And in fact, you can also look at it a little bit visually here with this being the 4th. So this is the first, this is 25% of the data, these 4 numbers. And then from here, that gets us to 50%. And then which one was it? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So here, because there's 2 69s, that gives us the 75%, and then that takes us out to the full 100%. And it's not always evenly spaced. So don't be fooled by that, like, oh, there's only 4 numbers here, and then there's 4 numbers here, and then there's 4 numbers here. That is not the pattern. It comes from you computing what those values are in the data set. Remember, I mean, look here, we've got a couple of 66s, a couple of 67s, a couple of 69s. That certainly skews the data. Let's look at this second example. And in this second example, I have not at all put the data together, but I did it over here in my notes. So I'm going to write out our ordered list, and I'm going to kind of show you, and I'm sure I've shown you before in making an ordered list, kind of how I do it, but I like to stack the ones that are repeats of each other so you can really like see them and you don't miss them in the sea of all the numbers. So we're going to start here with 1.87. Then we'll have 1.93, 1.95, 1.96, 1.98, 1.99, 2.0, 2.06, 2.06, 2.06, 2.07, 2.11, 2.13, 2.21. I'm also going to suggest, if I haven't already, and I'm sure I have in the lectures, but to use a scratch piece of paper to put this together and then write a nice clean list, because if you've got things jammed up and it gets looking all super messy, you're going to miss some stuff. You're not going to be able to look back and make sure. And then also always count what you write down when you transfer data from one list to another. Count and make sure you got everything there. I know that this is correct because I've done this a couple of times today already before I could do it for you again this time. So I know that it's right on the money, but do be sure that you go ahead and count and make sure all your stuff's in line, because remember, you're looking for position in that ordered list. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and find that 5-number summary here. So we need, let me change colors here. We need our minimum value, 1.87. We're going to need our Q1. We're going to need our median. We're going to need our Q3. And we're going to need our max. Now, no one should get the min and the max wrong, right? No. So I'm going to go ahead and write those in, because those are kind of no-brainers. Get to do it just straight away. Sorry, I've been talking all day. Starting to get a little. Okay. So let's get to the ones that we need to actually compute here. So Q1. Q1 is n times 0.25, right? And so n here was 14. Because it's 14, we're going to have to get an average for the median. Y'all, there's fixing to be some barking go on. Hopefully not. Okay, so you got to get an average for the median, right? Okay, so let's get back here. If n is equal to 14, then we have 14 times a quarter. And that gives us 3.5. Am I looking at the right one? Yep, 3.5. Cool. And 3.5, when we round up, is the 4th position. And that 4th position, let's find it here. 1, 2, 3, 4th position. That's equal to 1.96. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the Q3, because that's going to be the one that's like the least amount of work right now. So for Q3, we're going to go n times 0.75. So 14 times 0.75 is equal to 10.5. And we'll have to round that up to the 11th position. In the 11th position, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You see how I did that? I didn't do 8, 9, 10, 11. You got to count each one of these guys. All right. So that is going to 2.07. And then let's take care, excuse me, of the median. I'm going to do it in a different color because it's a little bit of a pain in the behind, because this is a even number, and if it's an even number, we have to take the average of the middle position and its next value. So if we take 14 times 0.5, that's going to equal 7. So we need the 7th and 8th average. Okay. So let's see. Here we are, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the 7th was 2.0 plus the 8th will be the next one. So 2.06. We divide that by 2. We're going to get, change my color now because we've got our final answer, 2.03. And there it is. We got it. And we've got our 5 number. I'm wearing down, y'all. So I'm going to write it like this: 1.87, 1.96, 2.03, 2.07, 2.21. And I just looked here because I am, what I am today. And I see this, that it says find and interpret the 5 number summary. Now, I want you to say something in the interpretation, and there's no one answer. But one thing we could say here is that 50%. Now let's read the problem. Suppose you weighed 14 packs of ground beef that are said to be 2 pounds. The actual weights are as follows. Okay, so we're just checking it out. So 50% of the packages are between, and now you could be ridiculous and you could say between, well, that wouldn't be ridiculous. They're between the minimum, which is 1.87 pounds, and 2.03 pounds, right? Because that's that first piece. Or you could say that 50% of the packages are between, and check this out, Q1 and Q3. So 1.96 pounds and 2.07 pounds. Okay. You could also say 75% of the packages are under 2.07 pounds. You could say only 25% of the packages are over 2.07 pounds. There's a lot of things you could say here, but these are the 2 main obvious ones. Okay. Now, 5 number summaries have a special kind of graph, right? We've been doing lots of graphs. We did bar graphs in your homework. We did histograms in your homework. And now the other graph that you're going to be responsible for on your quiz and your exam is something called a box and whisker plot. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do right now. Okay. So it's better for me to just give it to you in an example. And at this point, you can read the slide yourself. But basically, you got to start with a number line. Okay, so we're going to start off with a number line. All right, and what I typically do is look at what, I usually look by 5s, right? Because that's an easy way to set up a number line. So I'm going to set up my number line so that my smallest number is the closest 5 below 59. And my largest number is the closest 5 above 72. All right, and then I'm just going to break this all up. And let me see, I did 60, 65, 70, 75. So let's go 60, 65, 70, 75. Does it have to be perfect for me? In no way does it have to be perfect for me. But what it does have to be for me for this exam is it has to be hand done. Okay. If you give me what your calculator spits out for this section, I am not going to accept it. All right. So fair warned. Okay. Now, how do we set this up? Wait a minute. I like to put little tick marks because it helps me keep my eyes going there. So there's 4 tick marks between fives. There's always 4 tick marks between fives. And again, does it have to be perfect? No. Do I care? No. It's a sketch. Absolutely. This isn't critical. But what's critical is I see that you made a number line, you made little lines on it, you put forth the effort, you demonstrate that you understand all the components of this box and whisker plot. Okay. So first we get the number line set up, right? Okay. A number line is drawn. We draw a box from Q1 to Q3, and this is the best way to do it. You go to your Q1, and let's remember this is min, this is Q1. This is the median. This is Q3. This is the max, right? That's why I told you, you got to be able to read that off. Right. So we go to Q1, 62, and hovering over, you're going to make a line at 62. Then we're going to go to Q3, which is 69, and hovering over, we're going to make the line up at 69. Oops, sorry, it didn't like that. Y'all, it's hard to draw like this. Okay, and then we're going to make a box. So line at Q1, line at Q3, box them up. Now, I am going to use a different color, but I just suggest you make it a little bit longer if you're just using one color. But now you want to sketch in the median. And the median needs to be just a slight bit longer at the median. And notice your median, oh shit. Sorry. Notice your median is not necessarily in the middle between 59 and 72. It's not exactly, but it's in the middle of the data, right? So visually it might look crazy. Sometimes the median might be right butted against Q1, or the median might be right butted against Q3, but you got to trust in that math that you did, right? And that you counted your positions, and that's the value it gave you. All right. Okay. Now, how do we finish it up? Well, that's my favorite part. That's the whisker part. And so this is called a box and whisker plot. So we plot a dot at the minimum value. And then, good Lord, y'all. And then we plot a dot at the maximum value of 72. And then we connect it together like it's cute little whiskers. They could be straight, they could be uneven. Again, I don't care. Okay. But I want you to draw this box. If you try to sketch me some crap off of your calculator, I'm going to know it and I'm not going to give you credit. All right. Okay. Looks like we have one more example. I'm sorry I didn't give you any U-dos this time, but I'm just give out. So we're going to do this last example. So you have a couple examples so you can go back and rewatch this video if you need to make sure that you understand what's going on. But we're going to do the beef survey here, and we're going to do its box and whisker plot. So how do we start? We start off with a number line. And believe me, when I tell you that sometimes the hardest part of this is figuring out what numbers you want on either side, right? Well, I'm going to go from 1.85, and then I'm going to go up to 2.25. You see how I'm just choosing that? Like the next reasonable number so you can make good even blocks of 0.5s. 0.05s, I mean, right? Because that's what we're going to have here. And let me see how many I need. 1, 2, 3, 6. I need 7 in between here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, I told you, close enough for government work. I'm not going to change that, right? And then I'm going to put 4 little ticks in between each one of these guys because I got to dial it in. Don't just willy-nilly it for me. Please show me you put forth some attention when you set these up. I'll give you lots of grace on sloppiness, but it's got to be close, right? Even if your spacing's off, make sure your dots along with what it should be, even if the spacing's off. Okay, so here we go. We're going for our Q1 and our Q3. So we need to make our lives easier and write this in. It will make it go so fast, so much faster. You don't have to, but it will be helpful. And you can see how they squish together, but I don't care. I won't care on your homework either. I won't care on your test. I won't care. As long as you do what I'm fixing to tell you. All right, so we're going to go here to 1.96. Do not do this on the number line. It has to be over the number line so I can really see with my eyes what those values actually are. If you do it right on the number line, it's not very good. Okay, on top of the number line. 2.11. Now the box doesn't have 2.11. The box doesn't have to be big. It just has to be there, right? Nice rectangle. Okay. And then we need to do the median. And that's 2.06. See how this guy skewed? Okay, there's my median. And then let's stick in the whiskers here at 2.21 dot and at 1.87. And now we connect the dots. And this is kind of a visual representation. Now, what can we interpret off of this? Well, we've already interpreted it earlier, but visually you can see that from here to here, and it's not going to make sense. Look, it's not going to make sense when you look at it. Visually, that looks like way more than 50%. And in the way you drew it, it is way more than 50%. But remember what this is representing. This is representing the data, right? Like 50% of those numbers in the list fall between 1.87 and 2.06. Then 50% of those other numbers fall between 2.06 and 2.21. You can read that right off of here. Each whisker is 25%. This side right here. Oh, I'm trying to write on my computer because I was looking at it and I was kind of into it. Anyway, so this part right here, that's Q1. I mean, that's this to this is from min to Q1. So this line right here is Q1. So what happens in here is 25%. So each of these pieces, 25%, 25% of the data, 25% of the data, 25% of the data. Now, I'm making a big deal about this because my brain had a battle with this when I first learned it. My sensibilities, my eyeballs that I've always depended on, was not happy with this kind of situation until I finally came to terms with the fact that this is the way that it works. This is the visual representation of the data. And after you do a few and you see them look a little different, and you please read the questions so you understand what we're doing here. Like this was the ground beef example, right? So read the question so it's got some context in your brain. So it's not just like, the worst thing to have to work with, Okay, y'all, I think I'm done. Okay. I hope I'm not too real for you guys. I can't be anything but authentically me. I wish I could throw on some makeup and have a happy face, but real life's a mother bad worder, and it's just chew me up and spit me out. All right. Well, thank you for watching. I want to remind you that your attendance quizzes and your homework is due on Monday. Your quizzes, which will be open and available for you to work on starting Friday, are due on Wednesday. And your unit exam to be done in the ACE on campus is open Friday. Y'all go ahead and make your appointments and set your schedules. Give yourself goals, meet them, and let's do it. Have a great day.